going into ACL, this is, even though this is a simple ACL tip, and I'm sure everyone knows this, but I just have to note it. I find it really interesting that a lot of people will sometimes go to ACL and try to open up their data file, and they'll say, well, the project files are, that's not right, and then they'll kind of go over to their computer. Bear with me as I scroll about here, and sorry, this will go quicker in the future. And they'll try to open up like a paid file as an ACL file and try to open that up. And it's not a project file. This is your data file. I almost don't even want to do it, but I'll do it for that one. So sorry about the noise there. It basically says it's not about, it's not an ACL project. What you need to do is create a new project folder, and this is a, essentially a ACL project file. We're going to call this data import. And initially, we get this welcome screen wizard. If you've used ACL, you may close the wizard. I usually just have it pop up. And then we go to the next. We are, again, going locally here. We're not going to ACL server. We're not doing any sort of SAP link, etc. We're not doing the ODBC or external definition right now for purposes of our discussion today. We're really just focusing on the disk one. External definition allows you to define a table by bringing in its definition and then applying that definition to the data. It's something where if you have an AS400 or if you have a COBOL data file mainframe, COBOL mainframe, if you have two of those applications, I mean, then external definition is usually a good thing to go after. But for 95% of the population, I think most people are working off of the disk at this point, and they're getting a data file like a text file or Excel file that they're then importing. There are a variety of files that we could define here today. What I wanted to initially bring in was this paid file txt and show you bringing in a delimited text file. And by bringing in this, and I'm going through this too quickly, it's basically there's two different types. There's EBCDIC and there's ASCII. IBM mainframe would be EBCDIC. Usually ACL can pick up on EBCDIC very quickly and tell you what to do. And for the most part, that text file is an ASCII text file, PC text file. Okay, and we're basically working off of a delimited text file. It is delimited, I believe, by tabs, and we looked at that earlier in this editor. And what's kind of creepy is I actually have it open in my editor, so let me close that. I believe it defines it. As far as I've ever used ACL, it will allow you to kind of have it open in that other application, but it is a little creepy. You think you're going to break something. So with that delimited text file, we'll move to the next step. ACL is pretty good at picking it. You might get data that looks like this. I would try other options such as tab. If this says none, you might want to put double quote as an example. Try some other options. Your data may also come through and not have the header record listed at the top. And one thing that you can do is just reset the option up at top there, use first row as field names and guess. And again, there are various fields, the definition is brought in because it's tab delimited. It does a pretty good job of kind of parsing where the columns are. You might want to take a look at it over to the right just to make sure that things look copacetic. And sometimes I'm trying to I don't know if I can recreate what what it would look like if it was bad data right now, but it might be something where the data is shifting to the left and right. There might be one field over here with like one item in it or something like that, and because the data record shifted over. But for the most part, I think it's good just to kind of scroll over, and I think you're going to find that 9 out of 10 times it will import the data properly. Now, it tells you you have this error, and an error sounds like such a terrible thing, and it's, I think, more of a small issue or a concern that you might want to just look into. But I don't know if error is kind of a tough word, but really what it's doing is it's parsing data, and when it's going through the data, if it finds things like blank dates, or it might find that a certain field is not large enough and it needs to pad that field a little bit more than normal, it will come in and say there's an error, but for the most part the errors are quite normal. So continuing is preferred. And ACL at this point, because the tab delimited file, again, as we were looking at it a second ago, I'll open it up. I'll open up this copy version. The tab delimited file is variable length. You can notice how certain fields are a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, and I think you'll find as you go to the right even more, things kind of spread out quite a bit. So it's variable length. And it's based as long as each data point, all the data fields, plus each tab. So you kind of add up all the data field longest records and all the tabs, and you would end up getting the record length of that file. And ACL is going to do that. It's basically going to create this FIL file. So we're going to call this paid file. Now fixed. And what there was is, again, in this case, a lot of these were blank dates, and it basically padded that, but nothing to be that concerned about. So we'll move on to the next part of this, which is to define the data fields themselves. As I said, there was, maybe I'll even go back to these slides here just for a second. Kind of a good point to just jump back to the slide. This is kind of where we start asking the question, is it a date? Is it something we're going to add and subtract? If not, define it as a character. And then we'll walk through all the permutations of that. So check number, as we talked about a little bit, is not a numeric. It's an ASCII field, and it's because you would never add and subtract check number. We'll do a few of these. I don't want to waste everyone's time, but the check amount would be numeric because it is something we want to add up or subtract or multiply or divide. But we wanted to take a look now, are there decimal places or not in the data, and understand whether or not we need to adjust for that. And in this case, there are decimal places, so numeric formatted, which is also known as print, would be the format. Same as discount, and now enter date. Let's kind of change that, date format. Now, what's interesting is you need to follow the date format as listed within the data file. So enter date has month, month, day, day, year, year. You can kind of see the day, day here. So we'll type that in. And what you can't do is do things like, put in month, month, day, year, year, because that's how you want to view the date. What you're doing here, and similarly, you can't do this, where you're denoting denoting a different type of character set. You have to kind of follow exactly the way the data is listed within ACL as you see it. So in this case, it is month, month, day, day, year, year. So just continuing on through the data table, once again, strangely enough, even invoice number gets defined as a numeric. We may want to change that to ASCII and continue through. But most of these, like payment terms, we would also want to make that an ASCII because we're not going to add up payment terms per se, I guess. And PO number would be another thing that it can help you to understand why certain invoices were paid on, as an example, hence a good file to get, or a good field to get, sorry. Okay, so continuing through this, I did not define every field perfectly here, really just as a matter of test and moving on through the course, but wanted to show you ASCII, numeric, date fields, and we will talk about improving this format using various filters and excuse me, functions, as well as something that we can do in Excel. So, it gives you a bit of a summary. You can go back at this point if you do want to change something, can go back, and but it is good to kind of check this and a lot of times say, invoice batch, that really shouldn't be a numeric. Instead, the invoice batch should basically be an ASCII field. So that'd be something where you could go back, make that change, and now invoice batch is ASCII. So again, we'll finish off this file. ACL has now padded those fields and created this new file that is fixed length. And as you go into the edit table layout of this file, you'll notice that the lengths now are fixed in nature, 12, 10, 12, etc. Best to get the data file that way. Glad to see that everyone's getting it that way, and that's quite good. Now, I wanted to quickly go back and say if you did get delimited files, very common for a majority of systems out there. Let's kind of open up this tab delimited file in Excel just to quickly show you. Apologize. So paid file is already open. And what we're going to do is now that this file is set up, one of the things that you can do is in the data section is decide what fields you want to set as ASCII or text and which ones you want to set as numeric and date. And the date I can't help you with exactly. We have to define them as text. But if you put let's say a large T as an example, whoops, bear with me 1 minute, scroll lock is on, at T, and then the numerics, you want to put, say, a 0. Let me just kind of highlight this so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so where we have the T for text, 0 for the amount field, and moving onward, dates I have to put in as text, etc. And I'll even go so far as to just make everything else text, just to be simplistic. And some companies, this isn't a bad idea to kind of start everything out as text, and then later using what we're going to talk about, functions, you can then define the text fields into something that is now converted, such as a value or date. Okay, now that I have this file where I've put in this, basically this data indicator. The data indicator is the line, row number 2. I'm going to save this file, and I could bring it into ACL directly, but again, I'm going to save as, just following my normal procedure, tab delimited, and we're going to call this paid file and formatted. Because we've identified which, as best as we could, the formats for the data. So now I have this tab delimited text file that I'm saving, and the paid file formatted may contain issues for Excel, etc. Do you want to continue? You would say yes at that point. And bear with me 1 minute here. And then by closing Excel, you could save changes. I'm not going to save changes at this point. And going into ACL now. To open a new file, by the way, you can go File, New, Table, and you can also go or right-click on the data import folder or whatever ACL document folder. It really, I believe it could be any folder within ACL. But by going File, New, or Data Import, New Table in this case, we're now going to bring in that Excel file. And it was called paid file formatted. Real quickly here, because I know you've been through this before, notice how I have that first record now in there, almost like a little bit of data. Error's been detected on number 2. I kind of know why, and I'll just paid, and we'll call it paid file format. Again, just interest of time, just moving through this one quickly, and again, just letting the program kind of take over. What's nice is ACL not only has defined the fields as text, but has also left justified all those fields for you. So notice that. The numeric fields, because we started out with the 0, does take the numeric format. I might even put a 0.00. I was being quick there, but 0.00 also helps, and in defining it and making sure everything goes well. Again, this text dates, I don't know how to turn a date automatically, so I have to call it a text and then save it as a date format. And I think everyone pretty much understands from this point, looking at this, how to continue from here. So I'm just going to cancel out. But what this does, again, is it will automatically define your ASCII and numeric fields, and then you just have to worry about date. I've also seen people, though, define all of their tables with the text or T at the top of all of them. And really any character would work. I just use T for text. And then within ACL, they're going to use functions to kind of save things or to change the format of those items. Okay. So, other formats that we wanted to show you today to really include them, but again, 80% of people are using fixed length files, so I don't want to completely belabor some of this. But what's kind of nice is I've showed you Excel, how to save to tab delimited, and any delimited file will work the same way. And what I wanted to now show you is the fixed length, but actually show it to you from the point of view of the report file. So we're kind of putting two things together in showing you some techniques, but in essence, you'll see we are going to create a fixed file that we're going to utilize. The report file, this is sample data files, and I apologize, just going quickly through this. You would want to select the PC. Now, what's interesting is ACL determines that this is a print image report file, and hence something to define as kind of different than the normal text file. And what we're then doing is hitting next. Now, ACL does a great job, in finding where those detailed records are. Report files look like this a lot, and I like this particular report file because it has a couple of different, nuances to it. As you go through the data, you notice that there's a header record and other header information. This information up here is kind of useless. I mean, maybe the date and time might be useful, but I don't know what else would be. And further down, things like the product class might be useful, but as you go down, there's also things like class totals that are not being picked up as well. And I suspect, I know how ACL is doing that, but we'll kind of walk through this example. And then again, the totals down below as well. I'm actually going to start over. So I'm going to delete this record and say, let's imagine that your import process didn't go so well. They never go so well, right? So we have to kind of plan for that, and then define this data file from scratch. What you're trying to do initially is identify situations where you can look at a line of data and find something unique about it. One unique thing on this line of data would be the period or decimal place that happens throughout the unit cost field, as well as the total cost field. I like the unit cost field because the unit cost field does not appear in the class total. That only the total cost shows up there. So I'm betting when ACL Auto did this, that it figured out that that's the field that you need to go look at. So as you go down and kind of check the file, that's what you notice. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight one of those data points, and I'm going to highlight a data field. I believe it was invoice amount or unit cost. So we'll type in unit cost. Now this is the interesting part. It's now going to ask me select some text that is always located in or near that field. It's used to identify occurrences in the field, and you want to highlight very carefully that that amount. So it's setting that detailed record now starts wherever there's always a period, at that in that column there. So I think it's at item 59 in the data. If there's a decimal place, that's a detailed record. And real quickly here, I don't even know. I think this might be order number or something, or inventory number, but we're just quickly kind of noting a few of those fields. You can define every one of them by now highlighting it, and just kind of, we'll call this a product, I think it was product sales, but product description. And what I then wanted to show you, now that we have a few detail lines done, is the header lines. So notice here we have product class happening. Actually, I'm just canceling that. We have product class happening, the words product class, and they only happen in certain cases whenever there's some detail below it. A lot of times customer information is up here, name, address, city, state, zip, that kind of thing. And what you can do is highlight, oh, sorry, did it again. You can highlight 01 and go out as far as you want, maybe 20 or 30 or so. And you do want to define this as a new record. It does not relate to detail. Well, it does relate to detailed, as we'll show you, but it's not the same thing as a detail. So you go, okay. And in this field 1, we're going to call this product class. Once again, it's asking, select some text that's always located in or near that field, and we'll select product class and hit OK. And what that's now done is created a header record that's going to be written next to the report record or detailed records each time. All right, last but not least, I noted up here that you have that slash mark there. I think that slash mark for the date only occurs in that one instance, and over again, but that's where it occurs. So I technically could highlight this data field and say new record and call this date of run and of the report, and highlight the one slash mark there and say OK. And I'm pretty sure that would be then a header 2. There's also ways of setting up footer records. We talked about header records. There's footer records. But for right now, let's carry on. I wanted to kind of show you a lot of the report functionality, mainly because as much as I'm not a big believer in them, I also feel that they have their place in that a lot of companies, it's really the best and only way to get data out of the system. So it's something where it's kind of understood. So we'll hit the next button, and we'll call this report. We could call it report.fil. Again, ACL is creating a fixed length file now of this report file. Everything should be defined pretty well, as you've seen. Now, what's interesting is that product class field has now been written down to each detailed record, so it's been related as like a table. It's been related, as well as the date of the run. So you even know like when the data file was run. I'm going to continue on and just say yes, and answer all its questions. But yes, agree that everything there imported properly. What I also kind of showed you there as we were going through that report file, and let me just open that report file up in a text editor because it's just easier to look at here. We're really defining a fixed length file. We're really sitting here saying that, I mean, the data here is fixed in nature. It's going to start at A, let's say this, I think it was product description or something, and it's going to end around here, and IT departments should be able to tell you that. And even with the reports, a lot of times you can get for the report, what was the size of that data field? Was it 30 characters, 20 characters? and that can be helpful, and then obviously the quantity and unit costs, etc. But it is fixed every time. As you look down, everything is kind of in lined up order. And again, we didn't walk through the fixed length file. I know a lot of people have them, but what's nice is they actually go right into ACL rather quickly. Now just going back, now that we've imported a couple of tables, we can double-click. Just move this. Bear with me one second here. So what we can do is move between the tables by double-clicking, on each one. But what's now useful for us, and we'll kind of move on to this paid file table. It's useful, I believe, to take a look at the entire file. Obviously, just kind of look, maybe scroll down and take a look at things and make sure why are things not looking right, and anything kind of shifting in the data where the address now is showing up over here. These are all causes for some concern. But I do find that the edit table layout, so edit table layout, is a very useful a box or area to work within. By selecting the options up here, you can sort name or start in this case. I like to look at things from more of a start point of view. It's just, usually, I don't know in this case per se, but usually when you import data, it is laid out pretty logically. It's vendor number and invoice number, etc. Again, can't quote that for this, but that is usually the way it goes. And also, as we define some fields, you're going to see that these new calculated fields that we're creating, or as ACL calls expressions, and that's over here, this blue button here. It's a little, hard sometimes to see them, but this would be the add a new expression. This will actually, anything that we create here would go to the end of the list, and actually the start is 0, because that calculated field is more in the brain of ACL. It's not actually in the data files.